Okay, so now that we're getting into the firewall and cowl repair on this car, what we've done so far is we removed the cowl, drilling out most of the spot welds and cutting some of those patches that you saw before that were just with all the brazing and the metal bent over. We traced a line along the lip of the cowl, and then we got a new cowl and placed it in its place to test fit it with the original firewall. So now we can see, if you look, you can see the lines line up, and we know that this cowl is basically sitting where it needs to be. So because we're gonna have to get into the firewall replacement as well, what we're gonna do now is there's a bracket on the back side here that connects to the pillars, and we're gonna cleco through the cowl, through the firewall, into that bracket. So that way when we remove the firewall later, the cowl and that bracket will line up, and that's gonna help us line up the firewall in the right position. So that way when later we'll drill the hole for the firewall and all three pieces should line up in the right spot. So right now I'm gonna be drilling these cleco holes, getting that set, and we're gonna pull this off, and then we're gonna start getting the firewall removed. You can see here on the back, these are the clecos. Those are the holes I drill. So you can see this is the bracket, and it comes in and it goes up to here into the firewall. So that's going to stay in place when we remove the actual firewall, and that's going to give us our indication and our markers for when we put everything back together. And so this whole bracket, you can see where I drilled the holes into the tabs of that bracket. You think you're moving forward, and it looks like less of a car every time I see it. Smell it though, at the end of it, it'll look good. Yeah. All right, everyone. Day one of installing this firewall back on the car is complete. I'm going to give you a quick once over of what we've done, and then explain what's going to happen next. Okay, so you can see up here, we started with tacking it in place, and then we clamped it, fit it, and then started with the spot welds, working our way from the top down, right, on both sides. And then we cleaned up the lips and hit it with the weld through. Then we test fitted the cowl. So tomorrow we're gonna start with just seam sealing some of this stuff. So this cowl vent's gonna get sealed inside out. All these spot welds from when we reattach it and the studs, we'll reseal those. Same thing with this, we'll reseal that bracketry and all those spot welds just to make sure that we don't have any issues with water. And then after we got that all in, we also test fitted the floor pan again, and you can see it looks like it's gonna line up pretty good down here. It's not the final fitment, but just you can see how the lip is, and we'll go from inside the car quick. It's not looking too bad. It's obviously not clamped in fully and everything, but it's looking like it's gonna fit pretty nice. So that means we didn't do a half bad job on the firewall. And as for this area here, what's going to be inside the cowl, we're probably going to end up painting it with some sort of flat black, nothing too fancy. I might just use a rattle can of Krylon black paint and primer with rust inhibitor in it, and just give that a once over, because once the cowl is on top, it's going to be pretty hard to spray everything inside there. So I may just spray it with that. I was leaning towards truck bed liner, but a friend of mine, Ryan Barnes, he's got a YouTube channel, I'll link it to in the comments, made a good point that like a smoother surface just will help any water draining from there. So instead of spraying that with some truck bed liner, I'll probably just use a flat black and seal it up. Couldn't hear a lot, but he just slightly. Hey, that's not bad, and then sitting flush right across. And then over there is where it's getting a bit of a gap. Cowl panel and firewall in. We've test fitting the windshield, and looks like it's gonna be all right. It's sitting a little low right now because I don't have the spacers, but in the corners and stuff, Looks like it's sitting at the right height and stuff. All the way up. Looking at the inside. All right, everyone, so that's the Firewall and Cowl installed. It's a big step for this project. It's starting to look like a car again, which is a great feeling, because when I was at the point where we were just cutting stuff out and bracing and getting ready for the potential, I guess, putting stuff in the car, it was a little nerve-wracking. It was great to have someone like Simon working with me who's done this a lot. Because he knows the process and he sees the vision and he knows how these things go. Where for myself, once you start cutting stuff out and you're like, what am I looking at anymore? I don't even know. It does get a little nerve-wracking. But as we're getting more pieces back in the car and as I gain some garage space, as we free up the floor, it's reassuring. It's good to see it start to come together. Still a long ways off, but Firewall and Cowl were big steps, along with the little rust repairs around the windshield and stuff. Test fit in the glass looks pretty good. Needed to massage it a bit, but there's now four different cars at the front of this car right now. I got my original car. I have the side cowl panels that Mopernut62 gave me. Check out his channel if you haven't seen it yet. Very good knowledge. That guy knows. He's a wealth of knowledge of these cars. I have the cowl I purchased from my trip to New York. Check out that video. It's a fun little experience. And then the Firewall. So from Mopar Marks, if you guys know that guy, he's on the 4B Bodies forums. He provided that. So that's four different cars, which it's obviously going to need a little bit of work to make everything fit together, but it's coming together. So next, we've test fitted the floor pan. It looks like it's going to be good with the way the Firewall's in. We're going to pull that out now, and then we're going to start doing the front frame rails. So once we get those tacked into place, supported at the front, we'll check all our measurements, and then the next big thing is getting all the frame rails and support structure back onto the bottom of this car. So then we'll get the rears and the front in, and once that's done, moving on to the rest of the front end work, the inner aprons and stuff like that, because that's what's going to hold those front frame rails in place. So that's it for this one, guys. Thanks for watching. Remember to like, subscribe, throw a comment below. It helps a lot. And we'll see you at the next one. Take it easy.